and the Vice President will explain to you what this program is about. So let us give him a warm welcome, please. So yes, let's welcome Vice President. Unfortunately, we have a Vice President whether rain or shine, he works day or night. All you gotta do is just give him some coffee and he's good to go. So, for those of us who grew up in West Northeast, especially, we know that there's some blessing we have, right? So today is a very blessed day for all of us that we are gathered here on a very important program. This program comes out of the manifesto of the People's Progressive Party Civic. This is one of our core programs that we are pursuing, making sure that everyone gets an opportunity to be employed and to serve their country and to be part of the greater and wider development of our communities. But the person who has to give us guidance, whose initiative this is as leader of the PPP as well, is our Vice President, the Honorable BHARRAT JAGDEO. So please let us welcome him as he gives us an address on his program.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say I'm extremely happy. Either way, it's the rain. I think you will have shortly. So I'm extremely happy to be here today to talk to you. I can speak about it. Okay. Well, maybe I just have to speak without the microphone, so forget the microphone. Just move this up closer for me. Will you hear me at the back? Oh, well, then I have to raise the microphone. Okay, I think this is going to happen with regularity, so we're going to have to stop and start. I was saying that I'm extremely pleased to be here today and to see so many of you here at this gathering. At the end of today's activity, most of you, in fact all of you, will sign your contracts and you'll be working for the government of Guyana. We launched this initiative, as you can see, and if you've been following the media closely, across the country. We've gone to Regions 2, we were in Linden yesterday, in Region 6. I came from Liverpool and Portmont, and now here in Region 5 to ensure that people across our country have an opportunity to work whilst we are preparing for a more prosperous country. So today I wanted to just outline to you where we are going, because I believe as young people of Guyana that you need to understand the bigger vision, what our ambition is as a country, where our country will be in 5 years, 10 years hence, if you are to play a meaningful role in being part of that future. And we expect all of you not to be part of that future, but also to lead that future as we move forward. So what I'm going to do quickly is to talk through the challenges of government and what we've been engaged in the last 18 months or so since the PPP assumed office. And then take you through how we have fulfilled some of the promises we made in the pre-election period, what those promises were, and what we have done to fulfill them, what we are doing to fulfill them. And then I shall take you through a bigger picture of the vision. So you know that COVID was unanticipated, that many generations, they live and they die, and they would have never had to deal with the pandemic that we have had to deal with across the world that struck Guyana and so many other places. This was an existential threat. It was an existential threat. Well, then move the generator out of the ring. Yeah. You can. I'm just going to continue. Turn it off. Turn it off. So, yeah, turn it off totally. So, you know, I told them to turn it off so I can speak. Did they turn it off? So the threat was an existential one, as I said before. And there was nothing else that was more important to the government than addressing that threat, because our people's lives were at risk. We've seen millions of people across the world succumb to the pandemic. They died. And here in Guyana too. Why don't they just... Huh? We took it off. So here in Guyana too, we saw what happened. We were struck with, we had a COVID hospital that was not ready when we assumed office. So we had to immediately try to tackle the pandemic. Today, we have emerged from this pandemic stronger than ever before. And we are vindicated also, given the approach that we have taken. I ask people to look around the world and see how other countries have managed the pandemic. We, in the United States of America, where they had the best medicines in the world, they had all the vaccines. They will not sell vaccines to people in the Caribbean or Africa or in Asia. We managed to secure vaccines, to bring these vaccines in. Today, 80% of our adult population is vaccinated. We can do 5,000 tests per day, upwards from 40 tests per day when we got into office. We have a COVID hospital with an ICU department. We have the staff trained. We have oxygen in these places. And when you look at the death rates, the United States of America on a per capita basis has a death rate twice as much as that of Guyana. In fact, more than Guyana. And we kept our country open. We were one of the few countries in the world that we remain open throughout the pandemic. If you look at many of the Caribbean countries, they shut down totally. But we could not remain shut down totally. There was a reason for this, because when we got into office and the country was shut down at that time, we found that about 35 to 40,000 people who were working had lost their jobs. And they had come to the end of any income that they possibly could have had. So we had to keep the country open and at the same time address the pandemic. So the last 18 months has been a nightmare from a management perspective, but I'm so happy today that we can come out once again have gatherings such as these. For example, 2 months ago, a gathering such as this one here would have been illegal because we could not allow people to come together because of the spread of the pandemic. So now that we have come out of the pandemic, we still face a lot of the consequences of the pandemic. For example, in many parts of the world where they're still shut down, the factories are closed, the places from which we import a lot of our goods, food, building material, construction material, equipment, they're closed. So if you try to import today a car or a bulldozer or something of that sort, you have to wait almost a year now because the factories are still not working abroad. And the same thing has happened with the cost of living on the cost of living side. Many countries now have banned the export of commodities. So if you look at the market, you see cooking oil has more than doubled because Malaysia and Indonesia that exported almost half of the world's supply of cooking oil has now banned those exports. The price of fuel because of the war in Ukraine has now gone from $28 a barrel. In 2015, it's now $120 a barrel. That's crude oil. We import that to generate our power for gas and diesel and everything else. So these are consequences of the pandemic. We have seen an upsurge in the cost of living. So in spite of the fact that we have removed all the taxes on, say, gasoline, there was a 50% tax on gasoline that we removed, and diesel. The prices have still gone up. So we have to work through these consequences. So this has been very taxing on the government addressing the pandemic, but today our people are safer across this country, and now we can get back to the business of improving lives, which we promised to do. So the second thing that we've been engaged in, so the second thing that we've been engaged in has been fulfilling the promises. We came to these elections with a lot of promises. We said, first of all, that we were unhappy with the taxation regime of APNU, the taxation regime. Because in 2015, they said the taxes were too high, and they would reduce the taxes. Then, what happened? The VAT was placed on water, on electricity, VAT was placed on food items, hinterland travel, a VAT on machinery and equipment. So what happened when this, like for example, VAT was placed on machinery and equipment? Suddenly, it made it uneconomic to invest. Because if you're importing a bulldozer or a combine or a heavy piece of equipment to create jobs, then you had to pay like $5 million more in taxes. So the taxes went up. Here at MMA, if you look at the land and water charges, they were increased from $3,500 per year per acre to nearly $15,000 per annum every year per acre. Already agriculture was marginal, so if you had to pay now a tax on machinery and equipment, on fertilizer, on pesticides, and then pay higher land and water charges, it made agriculture uneconomic. And so regions that relied heavily on agriculture, like Region 5, Region 2, parts of Region 6, we saw a major decline in employment in agriculture. In mining, apart from having to pay higher taxes on machinery and equipment, so the miners then had to pay a higher tax. This was, if you look at the budgets around 2017, 2018, the final tax was moved from 2% to 28%. We protested against it, then it came down back to 3.5%.
about 2.5 weeks, maybe or 3 weeks ago, we brought it back as we promised to 2.5%. So the miners had to pay higher taxes. The tributers tax, that's people in mining that they collect from employees there, moved from 10% to 20% and then down back. We've recently removed it. So in the mining sector, we lost a lot of jobs too because of the taxation policy. I'm not going to go through all the sectors. In forestry sector, we lost output. 2014, in 2019, 2020, we were producing half of the forest products that we were producing in 2014. And so we lost a lot of jobs there. So we lost about 35,000 jobs even before COVID. So we came in office with a pledge. Before we were campaigning, we said, we're going to remove all these taxes back. And we have done so in the first few budgets. We removed the VAT on water, on electricity, on food items, on hinterland travel, on machinery and equipment. We've taken all the taxes and fees back to the 2014 level. At MMA, we did the same thing, took back the water and land charges. And because of this, we have seen an upsurge in investment activity. So you've returned a vibrancy to the mining sector and many other sectors of the economy. That was the first promise. From the increased taxes to lower the taxes back. So we were busy in 18 months doing that. Secondly, we promised to restore the children grant. So you know the kids had in 2014 a $10,000 per annum they were getting for every school child. We had 167,000 school kids at that time. So that cost us $1.6 billion, so 1.67 to be exact. 10,000 multiplied by 167,000 children in school. So APNU removed it and they claimed that they couldn't afford it, that it was too extravagant. That was, the PPP was funding that. We said that's not true. They replaced it with some buses, maybe about 30 buses across the country. So if you remove $1.6 billion for 5 years, multiply 1.6 billion for 5 years, and you will see how many billions of dollars, nearly close to $8 billion, the children didn't get in the 5 years. You could have bought over 1,000 buses for that money. So we said, why are you spending so much on food in government, which grew by over 1.6 billion in the 5 years? And if you check the budget estimates, go for look at the budget from 2014 to 2020, and you'll see food supplies in government grew by over 1.6 billion. We're saying, why not give it to the children? So we said, if we win the elections, we're going to restore this grant and we're going to increase it to $50,000 per child every year. The first year we did that. In these 2 years we've been in office, it's now this year, the parents are going to get $25,000, and before the end of the 5 years it will go to the $50,000 per child, every child. But we have not only limited it to public schools. So we have 170,000 children in school now. We now have 30, that's public schools. We have another 30,000 in private schools. So we now are giving it to the children going to private schools. So 200,000 children will get $50,000 for every year from the government as part of the school grant. We've taken, since we got into office, the school uniform from 2,000. Now this year it will be 5,000. That's a school uniform help. So we are on the way to fulfill that. We promised, I recall 2015, if you go online and read APNU's manifesto, and they said in 1 month they would double old age pension if they win the elections. Well, it didn't happen in 5 years. But we said in 5 years we want to do that. The first 2 years it's gone up by 40% now. And we promised that and we'll get it done. So in 5 years. We promised also that we're going to restore the water subsidy to pensioners that was taken away by APNU. Now, we've done that in the first year because we said pensioners should not have to pay. That's about $1 billion more. We are wasting a lot of money on other things. It was better to give it in free water to the pensioners, and now we have restored that. That was another promise we made. The joint services, they used to get a 1-month bonus, tax-free, at the end of the year. APNU took that away and said it was a PPP bribe. So we promised in opposition that we will restore it if we win back. We have restored the 1-month tax-free bonus to our soldiers, police, fire service, and the prison officers. So that was another promise we made. We promised that there will be free education within 5 years. And we still plan to make university education free within 5 years. But we also promised to do 20,000 online scholarships. In the first year, we brought back Professor Opadier, who was heading the University of Ghana, the Vice Chancellor, and he now heads that gold program. And we now have 6,000 people who was hired in the first year, and this year we're going to do another 5,000. That's 11,000 persons. And we made it clear, wherever I've gone, if you have, every one of you here, every single one of you want to study, and I've been urging people to apply, the government will pay for the scholarship program. Anybody who wants to study, because we want our people. We're not limited by the 20,000 promise that we made in the pre-election period, because we want our people to have an opportunity to study and to improve themselves. We have even now gone to a stage, we recently launched a program that if you don't qualify for a university level program or a technical level program because you've not completed school, secondary school, you don't have the requisite qualifications, we have now launched a remedial program that after 3 to 6 months, if you do that, then you can, and you do it successfully, you can then qualify to go on to a tertiary level or a technical level program. And I hope that every single one of you will apply for that program too, because then once you're working here now, you get a $40,000 a month that can keep the income going, but you have 20 days remaining in the month to do other things. And we hope that you will use those days to study and upgrade yourself. Not everyone may want to do so, but I hope the majority of the people here. And as I said before, we are not limited by the 20,000 from scholarships we promised. Now, don't listen to negative people. I remember when we launched this program, APNU said, don't apply. And if you look at the ministers under APNU, 5 of them got scholarships, and their children. And some of them, $40 million for one scholarship. I can give you the details. Read the newspapers. You will see which minister and who got it. You don't need to take my word for it. But they were opposed to a program that will give 20,000 or 50,000 people a scholarship. So please apply for this program. That was a promise we made to education. We also promised housing. So in the years before the no confidence motion, there was no housing program in 3 years under APNU. After the no confidence motion, they then gave out about 4,000 house lots. So we said that's not enough, because in Linden alone, the demand is more than that. So we said we want to do in these 5 years, that's the promise we made, 50,000 house lots. In the first year, we've done 10,000. That's more than the entire 5 years period. We've allocated money in this budget this year to do another 30,000 plots. So when we were in Linden, since we got into office, in Amelia's ward, we allocated 400 lots there. Because Amelia's ward, the scheme and Block 22 were built since I was president. Those 2 major housing schemes were built there when I was president. We allocated 400 plots there. And then APNU got some people on the roadway. We're spending over $400 million to build the infrastructure in the 400 lots to squat on the roads, and was trying to block it. Luckily, the ministers went down, and Sharon Graves, who is the CEO, and they talked to the people, and we have accommodated them, and now those 400 people will get plots of land. In Linden itself, the president went and said, we're going to build 1,000 homes. So in Millie's hideout, we got 200 acres of land here, and we're now starting to clear it to do that. Now, people talk about land allocation. Many people in Linden needed a land. One person, Mr. Lowenfield, CEO of the elections, he got 200 acres just before the elections there, but ordinary people there could not get it. So here too, across the country, the housing promise that we made 50,000 plots of land. But we didn't promise to build houses. But now we've moved into that program since we got into office because we see a need for it. Young professional homes and others. So we probably do maybe up to 20,000 of houses. When I was in Linden again, and we have a big demand for it, and in this region you should also look at those things. Now when I was there in Linden, people say, we have the land already, transported land, but we can't build because we can't get the bank to give us the money to start a mortgage. So we said, we launched a program recently, 1 month ago, that if you have a plot of land that you already have, either the government allocated it or it's in your family, and you want to build, come in and work with us. We will then bring the bank there. We can do the construction on your behalf, and then when it's completed, you then pay the mortgage, you continue paying the mortgage to the bank. So that is for a lot of people who can't start because the bank will not lend them right at the beginning. The bank needs, like the government, to guarantee it right at the beginning. So if there are people in these communities who need that program, it's been, I saw Mr. Graves and Susan Rodriguez and Colin Crowe, the ministers, the two ministers, they went to Region 6 launch it. I don't know if they came to 5 as yet, but if they're here in 5, please make full use of this program. So we're busy fulfilling our promise there. So these are just some of the things that we were working on. Then we said we wanted to do 50,000 jobs, given the job loss. So this has been a big problem, creating jobs for our people. We have a difficult time in the outlying regions. In Region 4, there are labor shortages now. We don't have people to work. A lot of people are looking for workers, they can't find workers, especially skilled workers in Region 4. The same thing is starting to happen in Region 3 because a lot of the oil and gas facilities we're working on have now moved across the river. And so you're going to have the Wales factory where you're taking the pipeline to generate power and all of that. That will happen in Region 3. But in other regions, we still have a hard time. Essequibo Coast, Berbice, especially Berbice, where the 7,000 workers, sugar workers lost their jobs there. 4,000 in Berbice alone, but they're not at Wales and other places. Here in Region 5, in Region 10 in Linden and the hinterland communities, we're having a harder time getting investments to go into these regions because they're mainly agricultural regions. So you see a lot of activity around 4 and 3. These two regions have about 60% of our population live in 4 and 3. So, for example, 7 new hotels are going to start, international hotels, like the Marriott, going to start construction or started already in Region 4. So they will need about 3,000 people to work for them on the hotels alone. There's 7 hotels, and there'll probably be another 5 or so hotels here. We have all the oil and gas facilities, shopping malls, a whole range of stuff, housing schemes. So we have labor shortages, but it's hard for people to travel. If you live in Berbice, to go and work in Georgetown. Here, people close on the Marconi end could probably go, and the Mahaica end can go further and work in Georgetown and travel back home. But people who live further on this end, it's harder for them. So we have to now create some part-time jobs. And let me make it clear, these are not temporary jobs. These are part-time jobs. Because when I went to Linden the first time, and I told the community there that we'll do 1,000 jobs in the community, APNU said, it will never happen, a fake promise. When it did happen, they then said, oh, we don't want temporary jobs, we want full-time jobs. Now, you know what happened, and that is why you probably have heard me being very critical of them. So I said, you don't want part-time jobs, it's not temporary. First of all, these are not temporary jobs. It's not like a job that you have now and it goes to the end of the year. So it continues next year and the following year throughout. So temporary jobs are defined for a period. There is no end period to your contract here. So you keep working. It goes from year to year, etc. So it's not temporary, it's part-time. And secondly, I said to them, how many jobs in 5 years did you create in Linden? And Linden is your stronghold. When I was president, we built a call center there that was functioning until 2015. And when APNU came, 3 weeks after they came in, 88 persons were employed here. 3 weeks after we came in office, the call center was shut down, 88 persons lost their jobs. So I said, how many full-time jobs did you create? You don't want 1,000 part-time jobs, but you didn't create any full-time jobs. We're now back in Linden, we're rebuilding another call center that 250 persons would be employed here. Outside of this part-time scheme where about 1,000 people will be employed. So when they came back, if you look at the program with the leader of the opposition, and they have an MP called Mahi Paul, they then went on TV and asked what are the qualifications of these people who were giving the part-time jobs to. And we said, no qualification, they're Guyanese, and that's good enough for us. That's all that you need to be on this program. But then next, they said, oh, we're giving too much money, $40,000 for 10 days work, and the public servants are making $70,000 the whole month. But it's not totally true, because when you look at the other benefits, and you take out the Saturdays and Sundays, it works out practically around the same or a little lower. But they don't, all negatives about this program. But I don't care too much about the negatives, because we have a job to do. And we're going to pursue it with vigor and with the intent that we came into office to do that, to see our people get employed. So you're going to hear a lot of this. You're going to hear all of this griping and complaining about these programs, etc. Once people are working and it's improving their life, that's good enough for us. So job creation is vital, but not just these part-time jobs. We now need to get more permanent jobs, and that's why, to do that, we have to make some structural shifts in the economy. Because the agricultural areas, we need to go back into agriculture, but at a different level. You can't do agriculture if every season you're getting flood out. The farmers are getting flooded out. And this is going to happen with greater frequency now because of climate change. The world has changed immeasurably from the past. Our drainage systems were designed to store a volume of water that now is exceeded in multiples, that exponentially it is exceeded. So let me give you an example. In the month, if you look at historical data, in the entire month of January, the average rainfall would be about 7 inches. So now, because of climate change, we can get 7 inches of rainfall in a single night. So when you get that volume of water and you don't have storage, it causes accumulation because you need to work at greater discharge capability. We found that out when we built the Hope Canal, because every time Georgetown was threatened and the East Coast was threatened, we had to release the water from the Demerara Conservancy into the Mahaika Creek. And once it went into Mahaika Creek, then it flooded Mahaika, Myconian, and Abari. So every time the dam was threatened there, heavy rainfall, we couldn't take the water into the Demerara River, so we had to release it there. Every season I've gone through when I was Minister of Finance and President, seeing people, the struggle every season. And since we built the Hope Canal, a lot of people opposed the Hope Canal. They said it wouldn't work. Apnu said that. BHARRAT, Ghana Association of Professional Engineers. Since we built that Hope Canal, we've never had to release water back into the Region 5. And that is, we need now to do the same thing for each region, to definitively take water into the Atlantic. That is why we are planning, we have had several sessions, how we manage excessive water in Region 5. Because if we want people to go into agriculture, and agriculture is very lucrative, let me tell you something, the world's population is growing fast. You're going to get to 11 billion people soon, by 2050. The consumption patterns have changed. People are consuming more capital intensive and like more meat, so it takes more to produce more meat because they're getting wealthier. That's on the demand side. On the supply side, because of climate change, we have 80% of the world's countries are water stressed. They don't have enough fresh water and they don't have arable lands. So if you have limitation on the supply side and a growth in the demand side, what will happen are food shortages and you're going to have an increase in prices. And countries like ours that can produce food will be countries that the food industry, agriculture would be more valuable in the long run than the oil and gas sector. And that is why when I was president, we were the lead country in CARICOM on agriculture. Last government gave it up. You see President Irfan Ali taking the lead again. He came right here at MMA and said that Region 5 has the potential to be the livestock capital of Guyana. No, but not just livestock, but other areas. So agriculture will be vital in this region. But we can't, not all of our people want to work in agriculture. So what else are we going to do for a region like 5 and 6 or Region 2 where we want some of our people to work? A lot of our people from this region work in the army and the police and other places, but there are limitations there too. So what are we going to do with our people? How are we going to train them in this region so they can expand opportunities? So we came up with a program in the budget, GovEPACs. We said if you invest in these regions, Regions 5, 2, 10, Region 10, Linden, Northeast, we will co-invest with you. Because the investor now want to go to Georgetown or Region 3. Most of them want to go there because it's close to big demand. So how are we going to help you to invest and create jobs in these areas? So right now, if anyone wants to build a factory or a call center here, like we're now building one in Essequibo Coast, and I told you about Linden, we will build the factory shell and then have the people operate the factory, so then they can create the jobs. And in this region too, that is a business. So if you know anyone who wants to do, or they can apply to the government, and then we will co-invest with them. That's one way of getting more investments into the region and have a diversification of the job market away from agriculture. Because ICT is a good industry. Information, communication, technology is good industry to occupy a lot of young people who may not want to go into agriculture. Now there are other
we have been incentivizing people to lay fiber optic cables across the country, to bring in greater capacity and to lay them across. So that means greater bandwidth and also high-speed internet for communities in the area. Because if you're going to run a program like that, you need quality infrastructure on the ICT side. So we are working on getting that going. Now, in the long run, in the near term, we're also looking at how we can shift some of the hive of activities that's taking place around the mouth of the Demerara River in regions 3 and 4 into Berbice, into the Berbice River. So traveling 5 and 6. So we are now incentivizing people to go and build their wharves and facilities there to help to service the oil and gas industry. Now, the greatest potential for the development of that port is linking it with northern Brazil, either through a rail or road, and that is what we're looking at. Because northern Brazil is landlocked, states like Roraima. For them to get their goods to the Atlantic, they take days to go around Brazil. They can do so in 24 hours from northern Brazil to New Amsterdam port. They will probably they will get it here, maybe in 15 hours. And what takes them now days to get to the Atlantic through the rest of Brazil. So it could become a major, major hub for international transit of goods, but also servicing oil and gas industry. That will generate thousands of jobs, and that's what we are pushing at. So if the training school, we have taken over the Port Moran Training School, which is training people for Gaisuco for the whole country. And we're now converting that into training for oil and gas for the whole country. So people can be trained there to work in, and they'll have dormitories, etc., to work in the oil and gas industry right into this region. On the hospitality side, the training school will do that. At Maikoni Technical Institute, I've spoken to the BIT people, so these are long-term training. The Board of Industrial Training, Minister Hamilton has been going around. We said we need training now for some types of skills, so in the short term, and if anybody here wants to be trained, we need plumbers, masons, carpenters, welders, electricians. A welder, when the pipeline starts, we'll start building that, can make as much as $2,000 a month. That is a certified welder. And in less than a year, you can become a certified welder. So this is at a practical level. I hope we can get a lot of young people in the community to apply for these programs and be part of this. Not a gold scholarship, which is more academic, but at a practical level to work in some of these industries. And the salary is so good that if you in these areas, that even if you have to travel to Georgetown and come back, you can still make, at the end of the month, clear all the expenses and have a good living. So I hope that people in these areas, when I was at Maikoni Technical Institute, when we recruited the first set of people, and that was about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and then we found that you had more applications than the 1,000 slots we had allocated for the region. A lot more people applied for this program. That's why we are doing this second round in Region 5 to employ more people. But the principal of the school said they are already geared up to do a lot of this training, and we now want to make sure you're certified. Because if you're working for the oil and gas industry, you're certified. So it's talking about shifting more momentum to this area. At Palmyra here, I was saying that, when we built the stadium on the East Bank, it was for a specific purpose. We built it to straddle the bridge between Region 3 and 4. And now, look at what has happened around that stadium. It was a growth pole. We have about 3-4 new hotels going up there, a ton of business places, high-end housing, a lot of things. Thousands of jobs being created just there. So we've taken Palmyra, just as you skip over the bridge, And we are now converting that. Before the end of the year, you would have a stadium being built similar to the one we have at Providence for these, so that people from the two regions can benefit from that. And around there, you're going to have several hotels and shopping malls and a whole range of things. So we hope once that starts, and then the offshore activities that we're preparing for the oil and gas industry, and we hope, and the port of New Amsterdam being developed, then we will see much more permanent type, long-term, sustained types of jobs being created in these areas. We had a major setback just before the elections, about 3 months before the elections. You remember Roussel walked away and all the people in the Berbice River lost their jobs in Papuani and those areas who were working in the bauxite industry. This was not 3 months, maybe 6 months before the elections. And a lot of those people now, and in New Amsterdam, lost jobs. So now we're trying to see what we can do to find accommodation for many of them too. So there are lots of plans on job creation side. Here, you're preparing for that too. You are preparing yourselves whilst you're working here for those bigger opportunities that will come our way. But don't think, you read a lot, I'm sure you're on social media a lot. And as young people, if you're going to lead this country in the future, you can't lead by forming all of your opinions only from WhatsApp or Facebook. You have to judge for yourselves. You have to read different sources. So you get one bit of information, but you then verify it across other platforms and then make your own judgment. We need a discerning population. Only a discerning population and leaders can really lead this country in a sustained way. And why do I say that? Because there is a tendency to be very populist in the newspapers, people who speak on social media. Everybody has an opinion as to what our future will be. But it's the same suggestions that have led countries like Venezuela, that was producing 3 million barrels of oil per day. Now they don't have food in Venezuela and people are fleeing. Why? It's because they are very populist in planning the future. So you hear lots of things. When you, for example, the opposition now is saying, let's give everyone $1 million, $1 million per year from the oil and gas money. So on the face of it, it sounds good. Who wouldn't want $1 million a year? Everybody would want that. But could it be real? And what would $1 million a year, which is 5,000 US, cost the country? So we have 800,000 people, and multiplied by $5,000, that's $4 billion US a year. Guess how much we've collected so far in the 2 years from the oil and gas sector? The first year, if you look at it 2 years and divide by 2, it's $350 million a year. So they want us to share out about 12 times more than we've collected. And that's only to give people. What are we going to do? Spend on education or health or the roads or the power plants of the future, etc. It's nonsense, but it sounds very popular. So I say to them, you couldn't afford to keep the 10,000 grant for the kids when you were in government, and now you want us, you're out of government, to share out $1 million a year when there's no money to do that. The $350 million a year, people think a lot of money. In latter years, more money will come. But now, right now, there's a limited flow. And they know why, and I'm going to talk a bit about why too just now. But take, for example, the bridge across the Demerara River alone. You know how much that bridge will cost, but it will change the lives of 60% of our population. By building that permanent four-lane high bridge, it's about $260 million, but that will solve the problem for those people where to move across. Out the river, back and forth, it will cause a great growth spurt in those two regions alone. But that alone, and the children and maternal hospital that we're building for the country, this year we're starting to build a hospital that will be for women and children. So any difficult cases we have with children or women, there will be a specialized hospital in the Oval area that they can get the world-class care in. So that it will cost us about $170 million. Those two projects alone is all the oil money for 1 year. So, but we have to do that. We have to build a power plant that will supply enough power so that we can not only have cheaper power, but we can have street lights everywhere, and our industries will grow. So APNU didn't want the Amila project. They said the Amila project was not a good project for Ghana. By 2017, we would have had that generating power. They killed it. But right now, what is happening? We have about 130 megawatts on the demand side, and we have about 130 megawatts on the capacity side. So every time we lose a generator, blackouts. We don't even have power to supply homes, much less street lights. So how did we fix that? What did we promise in our manifesto? We said we're bringing in the gas, so we don't have to bring in a fossil fuel, bunker C, to generate our power. We're building a pipeline to bring in the gas, we're building a power plant, and we're building an NGL facility. By end of July, we're getting a bid for that. By 2024, we're going to have a power plant that's generating more than 2 times all of the power that GPL supplies to the country. We'll cut the price of electricity by 50%, and GPL will still make money after we cut the price there. We'll pay back. You hear all the naysayers saying, oh, you didn't do a financial feasibility study while you're pursuing the process. Oh, the cost of fuel to GPL alone now, just to buy fuel, leaving out the capital cost, the bunker C to generate 1 kilowatt of electricity is 14 cents, US cents. So that's about nearly 30 cents, $30 Guyana dollars. We're selling now power at about $60 Guyana dollars per kilowatt hour. That is what GPL is doing. We will be able to pay back for the pipeline, pay back for the NGL facility, and pay back for the power plant, and generate power at about 5 cents per kilowatt hour. That's total. That is the project that we're working on. But you hear all these so-called exports. You have exports on everything. And foreign exports who like to tell us how to they mess up their countries, and they want to tell us how to run our countries. And half of the time they don't look out for us. They're looking out for themselves, like on climate change. I'll talk about that. So on this power plant, this will make a big difference to us, and that's what we are working on. If we share out every cent we collect. So we made it clear in our manifesto. We don't have a lot of oil money. Don't let anyone fool you. It will come later. We want to spend it on our children, on elderly, on disabled. You see us now focusing heavily on those 3 groups of people. Special attention to people with disability, elderly, and children. Then on education and healthcare. So we have already done a plan for healthcare that will see 6 new hospitals starting construction this year. The Children and Maternal Hospital, upgrading New Amsterdam, Linden, Bartica, West Demerara. We're then going to upgrade also Soddy, and 4 in the regions 1, 7, 8, and 9 major facilities, diagnostic capability to do telemedicine. These hospitals, like in just along the road here, that one would have 65,000 square feet, 3 operating theaters, and also you'd have like CT scan right here in the region. You don't have to go to Georgetown. That's where our money should be spent on. Better quality care for our people, health care, education, so we build human capacity. On the vulnerable groups, as I said before, children, elderly, and disabled, they will get special attention. And then the rest on building infrastructure for the future and opening up other industries, so when the oil goes, then we have something to fall back on. That is what. So our road networks, if you go in Region 4, you see a road to Diamond being constructed now that will make a big difference to the people there. A bypass from Ogle, from Crane coming to now the bridge. The same thing we have a loan before the Islamic Development Bank by September will be approved to pave the Linden-Susdike Highway, building a bridge across the Linden and Wismar, across the river there. We just awarded a $200 million US contract to pave the road from Linden to Mabura Hill. That's what we're building, the infrastructure that would allow us long after oil comes and goes. And now, because of climate change, we have a narrow window to do all we can. So this is something, let me give you a couple of examples about naysayers. You see a group in Guyana. The world is pumping out carbon all the time. Now at the beginning, they were supposed to help countries in Africa, Guyana, Asia, like the Caribbean, Asia, to transition on climate side. Recently, if you have a chance, look at Mo Farrow, one of the biggest investors in Africa. He's African. And he said Africa must be allowed to use its gas to generate power, because many people still don't have electricity in Africa. You have in India, maybe 500 million people still without electricity. Mary Robinson, a former president of Ireland, said the same thing. Now the entire developed world says, no, Africa must not use its gas, which it has abundant supply of, to generate power. But they are busy using and expanding theirs to do that and to export. Here too in Guyana, before COP26, they were telling us you shouldn't use gas. But gas is not, if we're burning bunker C and we start burning gas, it's less polluting, less carbon emission. But nobody wants to deal with the question of how we will supply enough power for the growth of the industry, for the factories and our people. So we then have a local group who then wrote to Prime Minister Motley to say that they must shut down the oil and gas industry in Guyana, because if you have a spill, it will affect the Caribbean Sea. Now that group is made up of a lot of old people. So they know, they've been around a long time. Trinidad and Tobago has been producing oil for 120 years. Never once did they write to Barbados in the whole period, 120 years, to say that if spill in Trinidad could affect Barbados, which is closer to Barbados than Guyana. But now we are going to do it. They want it shut down in Guyana. These are our own people. You see them every day in the newspapers. They hate our country almost with a passion, unbelievable passion. They're Trojan horses. Often they reflect the view of the developed world. Nobody looks out for us unless we look out for ourselves. And we got to look out for ourselves. And sometimes in fighting, we get so caught up in a whole range of other things, we can't see the big picture. And we are determined to utilize all the resources of this country for our people. The 800,000 who live here and the others abroad. So you hear all people talking. I was at Liverpool and a gentleman came up and said, why didn't you use the opportunity when a foreign export said that you should have used the opportunity when the renewal of the license permit came up to negotiate a better agreement with Exxon. And he read the papers. And I said to him, look, first of all, you know how the agreement was signed. We started off 1999 Janet Jagan signed that agreement for exploration. We then started exploring CGX. The Surinamis intervened. I had the choice of going to the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. I had to take them to court. We won the case. We got for the first time the maritime boundary demarcated. And only then Exxon lifted the force majeure and started exploring. In 2015, when we found oil, Vulcan, who was protesting from APNU outside the Marriott at that time, said, the PPP is lying. They didn't find oil. It's just an election gimmick for 2015 to get people to vote for them. That's what he said. And he was saying that the Marriott Hotel would be converted into a hospital. You remember? I don't know if you remember that. Read that it was corrupt and all of that, and Jagdeo owned the whole hospital, the Marriott. Well, it's owned by the government of Ghana up to today, and the APNU was there 5 years, and they enjoyed it too. So the thing is that you hear all sorts of things, but who signed the agreement? When we discovered oil and we knew we had 3 billion barrels of proven reserves in 2016, it was Trotman who signed that agreement that we all said is lopsided. The same thing that the newspapers and everybody say, that it infringes on our sovereignty because the fiscal concessions are too much, that there's no ring fencing, that we have too little royalty, that the profit share is small enough. Who signed it? It was Trotman. And we in opposition, we said, should we renegotiate or we shouldn't? And we said no. We're not renegotiating because that will end up just in court every day. We'll be in court, we'll kill the momentum. So we said, how are we going to get more from this contract without renegotiating? And if you read the plan, the same one that had all the promises we made before the elections that we're now fulfilling, we outlined how we're going to do this. We said 2 ways. One, we're going to get more from local content. We last year passed a law that forces the oil companies and their first-tier contractors in 40 areas to use only Guyanese, in some of these areas, only Guyanese to supply the goods and services or Guyanese companies. And we defined what a Guyanese company is. After I went to Ghana, and Ghana had done this in Africa. I was there, spoke with them, and they helped us to craft the legislation. That was about a year ago. And we, now the company has to have 51% ownership by a Guyanese, 75% of the management staff must be Guyanese, and 90% of the other staff, the unskilled labor, must be Guyanese to qualify. Or you can go in as an individual. You know what that has done? That has changed the whole landscape now. So now about $700 million of business now will come to only Guyanese. And we've been urging people to get registered on the local content secretariat. Now they can only rent vehicles from government. In the past, I remember in opposition, I went to the Marriott one day and I saw a sign, Hertz, which is a US car rental company. And then I heard that the oil companies were renting vehicles from them. And I said, what is this? Don't we have Guyanese who can rent vehicles? So now we passed the law last year, December of last year, they can only rent from Guyanese. And not only cars and Land Cruisers and all of this stuff, but crane and everything, equipment. So now that is carved out business. They will need about 5,000, you'll need about 5,000 apartments. Now you can only rent from Guyanese. So if a Guyanese has their home or build an apartment, they can rent. A foreigner can come in here and build an apartment and then rent it to the oil and gas company. And so, and every cleaning services, security services, all of these, before they were bringing in firms from abroad and to do cleaning. Now even logistics to clear people at the airport. We have a big fight going on even now. They're bringing in foreigners. We made that clear. So a lot more business That was how we claw back a bit from the contract and to get better things for Guyanese now. So I hope that you study this too, because a lot of you can register on the local content website, the Secretariat, for skills. It's not just good supply of goods and services, it's for employment opportunities. If we have the skill here, they have to come to our people first and give them the jobs first. So that is one way. We've made it by law now. They can't, if they don't follow the law, that was passed in December last year. The second area we said we get more benefit is from the gas to energy project. And I just last week announced that the first 50 million cubic of gas will be free. And that would allow us to generate power so low so we can supply our people free power. Outside of the power, I didn't tell you, but the NGL facility we're building, we will also be producing cooking gas that we'll be able to export now, not import anymore. We import all our cooking gas. And that will happen in another 2-3 years' time. And that will be owned by the government of Guyana. So these will be owned, the power plant and that facility that will produce all the cooking gas and everything will be owned by the government of Guyana. So we can supply this at much, much cheaper price than people pay. So these are things. So read a lot. Read a lot about this. You hear a lot, everybody has a view. The foreigners, they like to tell us, don't do what they're doing. They're destroying the world. If you look at the accumulated emission now, that has already caused climate change, major structural shift in climate change. The bulk of the concentration of greenhouse gases have come from the emissions of those countries, not from poor countries in Africa, Asia, or the Caribbean. We've supplied a fraction of the greenhouse gases, and yet we bear the brunt of the consequences like flooding and hurricane, etc. And they don't even want to help now. In fact, they're trying to squeeze us more. So when we have an opportunity, Guyana, Suriname, Africa are there, to now utilize our resources, they want to veto our use of fossil fuel whilst they're expanding their production of fossil fuel. And we have a lot of local people who are either in their pocket or being duped because they subscribe to an ideology to carry that line. You see them in the newspapers every day. And so the whole point I'm making is about charting our own path to the future, where Guyanese are at the center of everything. That local content legislation we passed, I've seen people who migrated who didn't want to do nothing, have anything to do with this country. They've been abroad for 30 years, they're even born here. Their grandparents were from Guyana, now coming back to get a Guyanese passport because it means something now. You can register there and you get preferences on the oil and gas employment or to supply services there. So suddenly it has become important once again. And that is what we have to work. If we work hard and we spend our resources wisely, we will now become like some of the countries, like Trinidad now has trouble, Venezuela, all of these oil and gas countries that splurged when the going was good and they didn't prepare for a rainy day. We have to be very, very careful. And I hope that as young people, you can lead in that direction too. Don't get caught up in a mindset, a victim's mindset. You can change this country, you can change everything. People who get caught up in victim's mindset, they don't do anything. They accept their fate. That's what I keep saying. Don't let anybody tell you can't do anything. You see an opportunity, explore it. Don't let somebody tell you, oh, don't go there, you're not going to get it. You try it. Make sure. Because had a lot of people listen and not apply for the scholarships, many of them wouldn't have been on that. So you apply for everything that you find available, make a try, because that's what we're about. So I hope that all of you will help that, but also help to change the mindset of the future and for your own selves. So thank you very much for being here today. I know you're eager to sign up Now let me say something else. I have my staff with me. So wherever I've gone, people want to raise a lot of issues because for many years they've been waiting for roads. The school, the cricket ground might be, or the football ground might be in trouble, the community ground. They have an NIS problem. They have some problem with applying for public assistance, etc. So what we've done, we've created a unit at the office of the president. And all we need from you, because if I can't go through everyone here, is your name and number. That's all we need. So in the course of the next week or so, you're going to get a call, and then you can explain in greater detail. So if you have an NIS problem, like we've found with a lot of older people, then we can help you solve it, or at least we follow up. So if you have any such issues that you want to raise with me, the best thing to do is to put down your name and number, and then you will get a call from the unit in the office of the president so we can follow up. The staff are here. Yes. Right, and yes, so the REO can help too, and the others, right? Okay, thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Vice President. And now the floor is open if anyone wants to raise any issue with the Vice President, share a view, or even ask a question. So the floor is open to you. Who's the first person? Someone in front here. Just give him the mic, please. Control, you go around the mic now. Yeah, but let him be local.
Microphone testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Microphone testing. I want to know if it's working or not. You know, we're gonna have to go stop that. Okay. A very pleasant good evening to you, our Vice President, Jagdeo, Nigel, and the member of the Encourage Party. And a good evening from all of us here, as I say. My name is Chetnath Singh. I'm living at Plantation Falls, West Coast, Burmese. Of course, a few occasions I spoke on your visits here. And I'm happy to be a part and parcel of this gathering today. Your discussion was a wonderful one, interesting, important, has a lot of things in store, good for especially the youth of today, and as a whole of our nation. I would like to discuss a few issues that I would like to say, now pertaining to the community in our area. But as you earlier said, that we can have it united. So I won't take much of your time in this occasion. Today I want to say, again, your conversation was interesting, very important. May God grant you long life to live and to guide us, especially the young people of this nation.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So the issues you want to raise, I'm not sure they're community issues, but you can give them your name and number, and we'll call you and find out the details. Okay.
Anybody else? Someone else?
You can ask me any questions. There are lots of questions. Sometimes people don't know about government policy. They hear something and they have a different view. Any questions? Yeah. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Wanda Dolce. And sir, I would have sit there and listen to you. I heard you spoke about the scholarship. And you said that anyone who really wants to learn can apply. But I can say in 2020, I have a young son. He would have applied twice for the scholarship online. And all he was told, I'm going to get back to you in a week's time. That never happened. It never happened.
So let me tell you, what I can do is to have Professor over there and the team from the Gold program come out here. Because he had to start this from scratch. He went around universities around the world to arrange it. So in the first year, they had maybe about 14,000 applications, the first year, of which they selected 6,000 of the best applicants. And now this year, it's another 5,000 that will go. But I've changed now the terms of reference for the committee. The president has discussed this with him. So it's not 20,000 anymore. We were aiming for 20,000 as we promised. So now that we have lifted that barrier that they have, they can now recruit more people. So in the first year, yes, it was very, very competitive. And they were aiming for about 6,000. So I'm sure he'll get on. He'll get on. And I can give me the name and his number, but what will be even better is if Professor Opede comes to the community with his staff, and then he could explain to people and leave some of the forms. Some of them may not be able to get into the scholarship program right away. They have to go through the remedial program, which we just launched. So it would be better. I can arrange this maybe I wonder if he has done so at the New Amsterdam, the Technical Institute. So we can arrange this, I give you a day, and then let them notify the others that they can go to the New Amsterdam area, or maybe just here. It might be better than the Technical Institute to do it at the Technical Institute. Okay? So, but give the name and number so we can call you and follow up on it.
My second question is with the cash grant. I've learned, and I said Lord, because I didn't hear it from the relevant people. It's rumored that the 5 to 12 category, if the children does not receive the vaccine, they would not be.
Oh, that's nonsense. Utter, unadulterated nonsense. You got a rumor mill thing. Vaccines have nothing. The children vaccine is voluntary. Nobody not forcing anyone to take none of our children to take the vaccine. It's up to the parents. It's up to the parents. You want to get your child vaccinated, you go. You don't want to, they can still access school, no discrimination whatsoever. And it's not linked whatsoever, not in the tiniest way to the cash grant. That's rumor. We hear a lot of this nonsense. Yeah.
Good afternoon, comrade. My name is Cyrus Reynolds. I have a problem where I applied at MMA for some land since 2013. And I do all the documents, I have all my documents, and up to now I don't have a card to know what's going on with this land.
Well, let me say something. You should give your name and number, but we have a ton of problems at MMA. So we had people who have applied before. It wasn't perfect. But then you had the 5 years of APNU, and 2 of the chairmen of the MMA that they put there, both of those one got 10,000 acres of land, the chairman. Yeah, one they took, and another one I think maybe about 400 or 500 acres for himself. So the people they put to chair MMA got a ton of land, and they took people land, they didn't address a lot of the issue. So what we have to do, it's a mess, it's a mess. People have complained all the times of lands were taken back and given to friends and all of that. So we'll check your case, right? I'll check your case, your name and number, the staff will check it. But we still have, and if we go to take back the land now, suddenly you hear all sorts of things about discrimination. Like in Linden, we wish we could have taken back some of the lands that were given out to only a few big people just before the elections, and to use it for housing for small people. But that is what happened. If you look at the Gazette, you should look at the official Gazette like 2 months before the elections. And even after the elections, when APNU already knew the results, Minister Jordan put out a Gazette, and look at who got the land in the official Gazette, you will see. So we'll try to work and see what we can do. All right?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, anyone else? No,
I think everyone is eager to sign up on this program and get started, right? Right. Okay then. Well, Well, thank you
somebody-
very much.
somebody's here too.
Oh, someone is here? Okay.
At the present moment, we're facing
Just put the mic closer to you.
at the present moment, we're facing a field transport by rearing of animals and things, right? We don't have pastures, nor a personal place to rear animals. We normally use them when we see that. We make checks, but we have other things to do. Now, sometimes I will make a check, or my friend will make a check, where we throw back these animals by taking the food in the car, and then time, like I said, we don't have pastures. Now, they may end up in some nearby rice, they might brace a fence, they end up on the pump. Now, my main point is that the pump fee. Now, if I get 14 animals or 14 animals, I'll end up at the pump at $7,000 to $8,000 each. Tell me, where can I find that money from? Now, the van, you're going to call some van to sell a cow. Sometimes one or two cows cannot assist. Somewhere else, you're going down without going nowhere.
But as the chairman of the NDC, you're supposed to keep the animal.
The chairman is here.
The chairman of the NDC is here. What's going on with this? Yeah, right. Let me hear the chairman of the NDC, because let me tell you a couple of things we don't like getting involved with. It's conflict between rice farmers and cattle farmers. You can never win that across the country. But then complaints about infrastructure and damage to infrastructure and the pound fee too. Some people say you should increase the pound fees to keep people to watch your animals more so they don't get pounded. And then others are saying those who get affected, like you're saying it's too high. So you can never win that kind of thing, because on both sides you have people. But let me hear the chair.
Vice President, first, welcome, Nigel, who I know so personally, welcome.
Yeah.
You know that this is an agricultural community. And based on what I know is that the regulations stipulate that you are entitled to a certain amount of livestock within the area. We don't have a communal pasture in this area. So what you find is that people disregard that and have more than what should be here. So it is a conflict. The farmers' product don't move, is the animal. If you're mining animals, you have to find some means to protect somebody else's investment. So it's a tedious task to solve that issue, but I try my best to engage people. If you want to raise so much cattle, there are opportunity for them to get land. But nobody wants to move. Nobody wants to move. I know when invitation was out for cattle farmers to acquire land, one person from here applied. And he still didn't get.
But the thing is that, is there that possibility? Do we have more land in the region where we could have a communal pasture somewhere?
Well, what I know is that land that was allocated for farming, cattle farming, was taken up with rice.
Taken over with rice?
Yeah, everyone should address that.
Address that.
Yeah.
So yes, all right. Let me here. What do you got?
The Van Better area next to the Van Better has a 5,000 cattle pasture. This NEC has a portion of land where Mr. Mitchell and them is the chairman for the co-op. Close to 1,000 acres in that area.
So what are you saying, that this NDC has a portion in that area? This is the first time you're hearing this?
Yes, this is the first time I'm hearing it.
Well, I'm glad you heard it, but what are you all doing? You should be telling people this.
No. I know people apply. Mr. who you say is in charge? Mitchell. Yes, one of the Mitchell had applied and he wasn't given land. But before...
But he is saying, what you should do then, as chairman of the NDC, he's saying that there is a portion of land here that Mitchell controls now that is dedicated to this NDC. Sit down and meet with him today, tomorrow or so, and get clarity on that issue so that this comrade here, this gentleman, could hear about it.
I wanted to ask them if they were willing to move and go to occupy that place.
Well, that's a different matter. You can't say you want land, and then when you get the land, you don't want to move. What are you willing to move? Ask him, give him back. Are you willing to go there if you get a pasture thing?
At the point of time, I would say yes, or I want to know because I'm working. And the few other man is no one there to look it up for them to go and come.
Yeah, but you understand the difficulty of it, right? Because if you don't want to go there, and there's a limit in the NDC rule as to how much animals you have to rear, then when you exceed the limit, you're going to run afoul of the community. And then also in like rainy season and stuff, if these things are walking around, they will damage the sides of the road and everything, affect the community. So please think about it, all right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying again is that while I'm thinking about it, I still would like to know what could be done with this dangerous amount of fees that they're having and coming for down 3-4 bucks.
Yeah, but that wouldn't solve, shifting the pound fee wouldn't solve the problem of you rearing the cattle. What we want to solve the problem where you can go and rear as many cows as you wish and even grow without affecting the community. That is what it should be the solution. It has nothing to do with the pound fee. The pound fee is a deterrent. It is not a punitive tax. It is a deterrent. We wish people didn't have to get their animals impounded. Okay, so well, all right. Let's see if we can resolve it. Let someone else share the matter.
Good afternoon. I come to give a complaint for the back street, Golden Fleece back street. It's supposed to be done.
All right, but you heard me, right? So already, that if you have a street and stuff like that, because everybody can get up and say my street too, just give us the name and number, your name and number, and then they will call you. All right? All right then. And somebody just said her back street too.
Keep the back street.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else? Okay. Do we have anyone else?
All right then.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Good to see you all.